You know how a certain smell can just hit you and boom, you're instantly somewhere else, like the smell of an old book, or maybe a perfume that takes you right back to a specific memory. Scent is this incredible, invisible time machine. But what if a single fragrance could do more than that? What if it could connect two entire empires, especially two empires we usually think of as bitter rivals?
So yeah, that's the big question, isn't it? Can a single fragrance really connect two different worlds? We're going to look at the late Byzantine Empire and the rising Ottoman Empire. Two powers that were often at odds, and we're going to uncover this really unexpected link. It's a connection you can't see, but one you definitely could have smelled, the sacred aroma of incense. All right, so let's start in the heart of the Byzantine world. This mosaic here is just stunning. It's from the Chora Monastery in what was then Constantinople, and you can see that priest swinging a censer, filling the whole space with smoke. For hundreds and hundreds of years, this was the sight and the smell in Byzantine churches. Incense was believed to do it all: purify the air, carry prayers up to heaven, and even signal the very presence of God.
To really get this shared world, we first have to understand why scent was such a huge deal in the first place. For both the Byzantines and the Ottomans, a beautiful fragrance wasn't just nice, it was profound. It was like a language for talking about the divine. I mean, just listen to this. This is a quote from a really influential Byzantine theologian from the 14th century, Simeon of Thessaloniki. For him, incense wasn't just a symbol. He says it is the sweet odor of the Holy Spirit. So breathing in that fragrance, that was a direct physical experience of the holy. It was a real offering to God.
And here's where it gets really interesting. This deep spiritual connection to scent, it wasn't just the Byzantine thing. Not at all. In the Ottoman world, wonderful fragrances were seen as a little piece of paradise on earth. Good smells meant you were moral, you were pure, you were pious. So even though their specific beliefs were different, both cultures looked at fragrance and saw an earthly sign of a heavenly place.
Okay, so let's move from the beliefs to the actual stuff they used. I mean, if you're going to create a heavenly scent, you need the right tools for the job, right?
So in the Byzantine world, you had two main kinds of censers. There was the classic one on chains that you'd swing around, but later on, this type, the katsion, got really popular. It's basically a handheld censer, just a small cup to burn the incense in, attached to a long handle. Simple.
So why the change? Why go smaller? Well, part of it was just practical. The huge, grand cathedrals of early Byzantium eventually gave way to smaller, more intimate churches and chapels. In those little spaces, a big swinging censer would have been total overkill, just way too much smoke. The smaller, handheld katsion was perfect.
And these objects were way more than just functional. They were practically icons themselves. Take a look at this beautiful katsion. It's decorated with images of two military saints, Theodore and Demetrios. So using this censer wasn't just some abstract ritual. It was a way to directly call on these specific saints for their presence and protection.
And this slide right here, this just nails the whole idea. On the left, you've got the Byzantine katsion with its holy figures. On the right, a censer of the style that was popular in the Mamluk and Ottoman worlds, covered in that beautiful flowing calligraphy and geometric patterns. The art style's completely different. One has figures, the other doesn't. But the purpose, the core idea, it's identical. Create a beautiful, precious object worthy of making a heavenly smell. All right, so we've got the beliefs and we've got the objects. Now let's see how they put them into action. We're moving out of the church and the mosque and into the streets for big public ceremonies. The parallels here are just incredible. Seriously, look at this. On the left, you've got a Byzantine religious procession. On the right, an Ottoman miniature showing a guild procession. And look what's right there in the middle, a huge censer, front and center. Both empires turned scent into a public spectacle. It was a key part of how they came together as a community.
And in the Ottoman world, this whole thing was super official. This quote, it's from the 16th century, and it's basically the job description for the official incense burner, the buhurcho, at the famous Süleymaniye Mosque. He had to be an expert, he had to be clean, and he had to have a pleasant personality. This wasn't just some chore someone did, it was a real, respected profession.
When you lay it all out like this, the patterns are just so clear. In the Byzantine world, the priest did the censing. In the Ottoman world, it was the specialist, the buhurcu. But look where they did it. Churches and mosques, yes, but also at tombs. And the occasions are parallel too. Holy days, funerals, regular services. The basic structure of the ritual was remarkably alike, even if the titles and theologies were different.
So the big question is, what does all of this, the beliefs, the objects, the rituals, what does it all really tell us about the relationship between these two powerful empires?
Well, there's a really useful concept for this from the historian Oleg Grabar. He called it shared culture. It's this idea that even societies that are in conflict or have major political or religious differences can still share a common world. They can use similar objects, have similar practices, and value similar things, even if they see themselves as totally separate.
And that is exactly what we're seeing here with incense. When you start to look at history through the sense of smell, that old, simple story of a clash of civilizations between Byzantium and the Ottomans, it just kind of melts away. What you find instead is a story of continuity, of shared values about what's pure and what's divine. You find two peoples who, for all their differences, lived in a common sensory world, a world perfumed with the sacred smoke of incense.
Which, of course, leaves us with one final thought to chew on. If a connection this deep and this profound was hiding in plain sight, or I guess in plain smell, this whole time, what other incredible connections, what other stories of shared culture have we been missing just because we forgot to use all of our senses to understand the past?